forward. Right, and now my entry model. And there's a reason why the entry model came at the end of this video, because it's at the end of the process, right? The premium footprint execution process, the only way you can get a highly accurate and precise entry is by making sure you follow the first 3 processes. And so if you're looking to become a full-time trader, get funded, 100,000 in funded, etc., etc., the mentality of a funded or just a general consistent trader must be process driven, not outcome entry model winning driven, right? That doesn't work, right? So the biggest problem I see is that traders look for a precise entry without having any kind of positioning, read a price, and understanding a price. And so the problem with that is that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You end up going through this weird fatigue cycle, right? Where some trades work, some trades don't, and you go through this up and down motion. The reason that up and down motion exists isn't because you're necessarily a bad trader, it's because you have no framework to build your entries from. And so by following the entire premium footprint execution process, your entries can become a lot sharper. And I want you to remember the word BOLT. So what does BOLT stand for? So BOLT stands for break, optimal retest, liquidity absorption, and then I pull the trigger. Right, so this is the entire premium footprint execution process, right? So I look for a break, I then look for an optimal retest, I then look for a liquidity absorption, and then I pull the trigger. And that is how I find precise entries. Again, 2 things on this. First of all, if your levels are off, it's not going to work. If you're not using order flow, it's not going to work. And even in the precision entry process, the BOLT breakout blueprint, I also use order flow. And I'm going to break down a couple of chart examples quickly just to get my point across. So this is S&P 500 futures, and I'm going to be breaking down Friday's long position, right? So I took a long on Friday. This was roughly around here, only about 1 hour. I closed the trade early. I wasn't happy with the chop over here, so I closed just before this happened, which was a bit of a shame. But it's okay. It's more important to understand we're breaking this down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly break down Friday's trade from the lens of the premium footprint execution process, right? So the premium footprint execution process, if I get it up, quickly give me a second to do that, right? So while I'm getting this up, I want you to understand Friday's trade wasn't just Friday's trade, right? Friday's trade came at the right level. And so here's what it looked like, right? So whenever you have a trade, I want you to imagine this, right? Imagine the process that I've got here, the premium footprint execution process. And so this works in an interesting way. First, we had positioning. Right, so this was my key level from Wednesday. Now, if you're wondering where that key level came from, so typically it comes from a price imbalance, right? So here's where it came from. Now, again, finding key levels is a skill and a process in itself. I'm not covering the entirety of that in this video, right? I've made separate videos on that. But this is the price imbalance right here. Right, there is the price imbalance. And so I use the candle before the fair value gap or the price imbalance to give me the key level. And so this